notification. Okay. All right. All right. Thanks everyone for joining in our November session of Columbus User Group. Today we have Akshay Sura. Akshay doesn't need any introduction. He's one of those people in the community from the very beginning, and he runs hackathon, and also I cannot say how many things he did for the Sitecore community. And we are very familiar with SiteCron, which Akshay created, and recently he moved that to cloud for the XM Cloud. So today's session is about SiteCron. Akshay, take over.
Right, cool. Thank you, guys. Let me share my screen. Let me know when you guys can see my screen.
Is there?
All right, awesome. So, again, a short intro. My name is Akshay Sura. I've been doing Sitecore for a long, long time. I've done a couple of things in the Sitecore space, which I think some of you might use it on a daily basis. Today we wanted to talk about the enterprise scheduling for Sitecore AI, XM Cloud previously, but building a SiteCore Cloud from SiteCron Cloud from the ground up. So it was an interesting experience. SiteCron was used quite a bit. It still gets used quite a lot in the XP and XM space. A lot of schedule jobs. The main reason why we first created it, or why I first created it, was that we needed like a very precision scheduling. So one of the customers I was working for uses SiteCron for syndication purposes, and they needed to send data feeds to one of their own customers. And the base Sitecore scheduling was not as precise as I would like to, and they also had to update some docs related to NASDAQ on their site at exactly the same time. So that's what helped me create that. So SiteCron by itself on XP and XM lets you schedule jobs. You can do PowerShell jobs. You could write your own custom jobs, basically based on quartz.net. Runs fairly simply. I haven't really seen any major issues in it, and quite a few people use it from what I can see. Um, then came Sitecore AI or XM Cloud, and then it was a bit interesting because now we're talking about SaaS, right? So previous XMXP, you install a module, the SiteCron and the Quartz.net run on your CM server, and sometimes some people put it on the CD as well. But now we have no infrastructure. It needed to run somewhere else, and it needed to run in accordance with Sitecore AI. But from what I understand, from what I've used, so we've known that the Sitecore AI is cloud native, gives you all the flexibility, but still there's a need for precision scheduling for either publishing, or you can think of a lot of use cases similar to the one that we have on XP that you need to do, but you no longer can because you need an integrated um, scheduling system on Sitecore AI. And then hopefully, even if they did have it, it would probably end up triggering like a webhook in order for you to do what you need to do. So thinking about that, why do we need scheduling? Again, use cases really make a big difference. Everyone does it differently. Some do it because they need something on the site at a specific time because of legal reasons or obligations. A campaign that needs to go live. And it was kind of interesting because we did a webinar recently on Sitecore Symposium, and Liz was talking about releases. And I'm kind of curious how and when the releases will come into play, because the whole concept of releases is you have different content in different channels all going live at a specific moment in time. And they said precision to the second is what she said. So doing that and being able to completely roll back, and I think that was also along with being able to move from a SQL architecture to more Cosmos DB, and there's a whole underlying conversation on that part. But that would be an interesting thing. I do have to take a look at that to see how they plan on doing it. From this perspective, like I mentioned, every use case will have its own merit. You have to push a feed, you have to pull a feed, you have to publish, you have to unpublish, you have to trigger something else, you have to do secondary jobs based on something someone did in a third-party system, for instance. So there's like reasons for it, compliance, you name it, you'll probably find a use case for it. So it's interesting to listen to it. Um, I did write a couple of blog posts on this. One was to kind of talk about the architecture, and I'll go through some of that here. But if you need additional reads on marketplace app, how to look at it from a architectural perspective, or some of the things that you need, which are it's kind of difficult for you to find of how to do like the API call to the management API, or how to get the tenant ID or the site ID. Sometimes it can be tricky. Some of those are covered in these blog posts. If you guys want to try it out, more than happy if you want to scan the QR codes for that. Architecturally, it looks fairly simple on the outside, and there's quite a different pieces of it. And thankfully, by this point, we've had the experience of working on multiple headless systems, both commerce and DXP, so kind of made sense. The way the marketplace app is at this moment in time, it's based on the marketplace SDK. The second version uses a block system, which kind of helps like the UI from a UI perspective. What they typically do is you have endpoints, so basically contexts, and we'll go through that as well. So SiteCron does both the desktop context, so it can be placed on a desktop, as well as a page level context, so it can be placed on every single page. You can open the context panel and do something. Now, what you can do in this is pretty basic at this moment in time, because we just wanted to get a hang of it, make sure it runs, make sure the jobs trigger. But what you can add on top of it, you can add quite a bit. So your app for the different contexts gets iframed in along with your XM Cloud or Sitecore AI application. So when you browse to your dashboard, and it's kind of a little bit difficult right now to get to the dashboard ever since they moved everything to Sitecore AI, but you can get to it. So the dashboard widget right now shows how many jobs you have for the entire tenant, because at the dashboard level, you're looking at a tenant, which you can have multiple sites, multiple projects underneath it. So that iframed version comes from Next.js, again, uses block design, uses the latest Marketplace SDK. Now that UI calls a bunch of services. So in Azure, there's a SQL database which maintains persistence for your jobs. Uses Quartz.net, the latest version, uses an Azure App Service based on a Linux machine, virtual machine, which runs .NET Core code. And all of the fun stuff happens in the background where we use OAuth to go back using the management API. So it's a lot of moving pieces, and it does quite a few things. So when you look at it from a layer perspective, you basically have 5 layers. So once it gets iframed into your Sitecore AI, so the front end and back end are completely different. They just talk to each other using API calls, similar in a SaaS architecture. The backend layer is run on Azure. Like I mentioned, it's a web app, provides the API for all kinds of management. So everything that's done, which is nice, both the admin functions as well as what the sites need, is all done through API. So there's no need to manually go into a database to do things, or a different admin console. So that kind of helps. The scheduling layer also is completely independent. All its job is to read the jobs from the database, uses Quartz.net, executes the jobs. Um, and then there is another layer where we need to interact back with the Sitecore AI. So there is API keys for us to make management API calls to do things, and then everything's stored in SQL Server at this moment in time. You can go and store in it. Quartz lets you have a couple of different types of data storage, MySQL being another one, which is probably cheaper than SQL. And then the whole thing can be a single tenant or multi-tenant. What I mean by that is at this moment in time, you could have a single instance serving multiple Sitecore AI instances, multiple different customers per se, right? Like users. Or you can spin up a completely different instance if there is a need where we don't want our data to be touching someone else's, we want our own independent. It's architected in a way that you could spin up a separate instance and then completely use that for a specific customer, for instance. So that's totally possible as well. Um, how to get started. So this is a little bit interesting. The way the Sitecore Marketplace is architected is you can have free apps. So you can go click and then boom, it's available. And then whichever contexts are available, you can use that in your marketplace, in your Sitecore AI. But there's the custom app. So this would fall under the custom app at this moment in time because there is setup needed on my end. So someone comes in and says, hey, I want to try out the SiteCron Cloud. What do I need to do? Well, you need the org ID. So basically, you take the org ID and give them access to the app because it's a custom app. Then I would need the tenant ID, site ID in order to for your API calls from your instance to work. And if you need publishing to work, you would have to create a set of credentials, which is client ID, client secret. And you can control that by site. You can control that by tenant in your Sitecore AI dashboard. But with those, you can actually go call back your management API and say, okay, I need these published. I need those published. Um, and then all calls are specific to the tenant widgets we talked about. And it's basically the Sitecore Marketplace is evolving in the sense that right now uh, it does what it does, but they are adding more layers. So, for instance, secrets are not available in Marketplace at this moment in time. What do I mean by that is for me to be able to store secrets on the Sitecore AI, uh, in order for that to be available for the Marketplace app. So, what I want to do, I'll give you an example. Say I have an API key to Vercel and I want to clear cache on Vercel. I would like that to be stored for the Marketplace app to access in a Sitecore AI instance. So then I get that API key and I can do something with it. I can't do that at this moment in time. Another example is I would like the calls made from the Sitecore AI dashboard widget or the page level widget to authenticate with, say, the SiteCron Cloud API, but I need the API key stored as a secret. I can't do that at this moment in time as a secret. I would have to pass it as a URL to the widget, which gets iframed in, right? So there's a few things that they're still adding. It's on the roadmap. I know that's one of the highest things at this one, the one I talked about, which is secret storage. So Stavros and Karasi, who I actually worked with before the marketplace was released, is high on their list. So that will open up a lot of doors, which means I can do things quicker and faster rather than trying to figure out, or for instance, right now, I store the management API client ID secret on the SiteCron end. That's why I need someone to generate it, give it to me. So I store it per tenant or per site on the SiteCron Cloud end in order for me to make calls back. So it's still evolving. The process might be simpler. The free apps work off of context. So the SEO, GEO, AEO apps, for instance, you install it. It doesn't really need to make a lot of things. You're not calling an external service, or even if you are, it's generic, but it works with the context of your site. So it's easier. So they can be free apps. Um, So from a stats perspective, so I've been testing this like 6 to 8 months, I forget. It's been pretty decent. So I know there's quite a bit of stuff happening right now. There's no technical limit, even though I did mention it's 50 jobs per tenant. I don't block it, even if you schedule more. It is pretty quick. It responds really quickly. the main bottleneck is the Sitecore AI API response time. So when you make a call back to publish, it truly depends on multiple factors of how fast that API call takes into effect. Sometimes it takes a little longer, sometimes it's faster. We looked at it, we built it both for single tenancy and multi-tenancy. So having your own instance for one specific customer, as opposed to also having one instance for 15 customers. So you could do it whichever way you want, but a single instance could handle hundreds of customers. It shouldn't be, it's easy to scale up. It's a Linux instance on the app service. It's super quick to scale up and it's extremely fast and resource doesn't take a lot of resources. Um, the monitoring is again done on App Insights, just like it's basically on the Azure stack. So everything you can think of on Azure is something that you can do. Same thing with the database, you can scale up pretty quickly. From a roadmap perspective, so I spoke with a few people at the symposium. They wanted to test it out for their own internal purposes, their instances. And there's a lot of use cases people want to do. Now, the first thing I tell them is think about what you're asking. So it's a SaaS-based service, right? So the first question anyone asks is, can I customize my jobs? Can I have a custom job? Well, you can and you cannot. So you cannot because it's a SaaS service and you would have to push custom code to do something. But the flip side of that is you can, which is if your custom thing, so assume you have to export a whole bunch of stuff, create an Excel spreadsheet, upload it to an FTP file, FTP folder. Sure, you can do it. So if you create something in Azure or AWS Lambda and it can be called via an API call, authenticated or not, or a webhook, you could trigger that. So one of the things that which I haven't enabled for any tenant yet, but you can call other webhooks. So XM Cloud can make a call using the widgets to SiteCron, and SiteCron can make other external webhook calls, authenticated or not, to do other things. So extension is always keeping SaaS in mind. You're not trying to customize a service. You're trying to find ways to achieve the same thing without needing to customize the core service, right? Just like Sitecore AI. So some of the things are being able to monitor the jobs in real time, which is kind of difficult because some of these run extremely fast and some of them take time. Being able to give metrics per every job to see how successful or how many times was it successful. That's kind of interesting. Being able to retry. So think about the dashboard widget, which kind of gives you an overall look at all of your jobs. Some of these are really cool to do it at that level. So it's super simple. Um, Creating Vercel or Netlify cache was pretty high on everyone I spoke with, and what would be cool is after we publish, we can chain it to clear the cache on Vercel and Netlify, which would be it's actually pretty easy to do that. It's just a call, but something which needs to be threaded. Slack or Teams notifications was another one. The external webhook executions, I actually have it. I haven't really enabled it, but there's a lot of cases. And at this moment, I'm just trying to get all of the info that I can from everyone to kind of see what makes sense to do first. And it's not that difficult to add more functionality. Um, Spoken a lot. Let me show a demo and hopefully the demo guides will be nicer because they were giving me trouble before. So from a SiteCron Cloud perspective, essentially the app is already set up. Right now, we only have the dashboard and the page context panel enabled for the app. And this is what I was talking about is you can give permissions to multiple orgs and then name the org, create the credentials. So when you open up your Sitecore AI dashboard, and it is a little bit tricky to get to at this point, and it probably kicked me out, didn't it? Yeah, that's the fun part is the dashboard. It was moved was moved after the Sitecore AI. So it is a little bit interesting to get to it. Well, I'll try to find that. Um, and then the other context is the page context. So let me get to that one. So when you're on a Sitecore AI page, essentially here, and then all the extensions that you have available are available over there at this moment in time. Essentially what I did, and again, this is just a version one, just to get everyone on the same spot and try to figure out what makes more sense. This can change really depending on what everyone needs. But the current need, which drives everyone, is being able to publish multiple languages, publish subpages. So if you know the cron expressions, you can do that. I did add a builder at this moment in time because I know in the older SiteCron, that was one of the pieces where it was you had to create the cron expression somewhere or know how to create it in order for you to use it, but try to make it a little bit easier here. But say you need this published once every month, for instance, you would select that schedule. And this is what I was talking about is sometimes it runs faster, sometimes it runs slower, and that's the crazy part in the way it triggers it. Hopefully it'll work, and if it doesn't, then I'll blame the demagogues for it.
Uh, Akshay, this is really very good where it shows that is it going to show that what will be the duration when you
Duration,
so you wrote the Chrono expression 0010 1 star.
yeah.
So what it will be? Yeah, that is 10 hours first.
So
Okay.
it first, so every month, so star is every, right? So every month, first of the month, at 10 o'clock in the morning, this job will run. Is
Okay.
basically what it's telling you right now. So like if I pick 6 a.m., 6, right? So it's basically saying every day of every month at 6 in the evening, this job is going to run. It's basically trying to, this is a 6-digit cron expression. There's usually like 5-digit cron expressions as well, but Azure ones are 6, but it'll actually tell you. So this is an easier way to learn it as well. So it's like every month, every Monday, 8 o'clock in the morning, every Monday, this job will run is basically what it's trying to say on this one. Let me, because I know currently there was stuff happening. I just want to see how to get to the dashboard. It's just really annoying. I know they modified this recently.
Um, in previous version with XP, I think you have a link to cronmaker.com.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. I've just used last week as well. I've been working on that a lot recently.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So here's the dashboard. It's kind of difficult to get to the dashboard because it's just pretty annoying the way they did it after the Sitecore AI stuff. But this basically puts in a bunch of debug info. It is kind of difficult to get the tenant ID. I had to walk someone through it recently, and it's a tiny bit difficult. But here at this moment in time, all it's doing is just showing you the all the jobs scheduled for that tenant. Tenant can have multiple sites, but I haven't really done anything with the dashboard widget. It can definitely add a lot more functionality from a dashboard perspective. It should have been scheduled by now. Yeah, just the API calls were just kind of a little bit annoying on this one, but those are the two main contexts. So the dashboard context and then the page context are the two that we've done. What would be nice is on here if you already knew the jobs that were scheduled for this, and it'll go beyond publishing. So this probably would have multiple categories. I just have to trigger it or like set it up in a way that you can do multiple different operations, but it would be nice per page what all jobs were scheduled for this page. It's pretty easy to get, but I haven't really put that in. But those are the two main uh, context panels. There's others. I don't know if people have seen. I know they added the custom field recently, but You could do a full screen, you could do a standalone, but at this moment, these are the main two. And then for each one, you basically get to specify the endpoint. They have a couple of different things that you can do to get it to work. Let me go back to the other one. So anyways, that, and I can answer any questions that you need me to. That in a nutshell is basically SiteCron XM Cloud, right? That's like, and from a use case perspective, if any of you have a use case that I haven't spoken about or want to talk about, or would be nice to have, even if you don't use it, but you can think of a use case, let me know and I'll be more than happy to look into it. At this moment, that's all I'm trying to do, is to try to get it to be used by a few people to kind of get feedback on it and figure out what the next steps are to add more features to it.
Looks great, Akshay. Quick question. You're like, I think you showed 5 layers there. Any of those layers, like, I think the second one, are you hosting the backend layer, like, Azure Web Apps?
Yeah, so that's one of the interesting things that the Sitecore team came back with, I think like 8 months ago, when they were like really in the thick and thin of it, working with Justin as well. Yeah, you have to. And that was one of the interesting parts of discussions when we were talking about free as opposed to, I wouldn't say free, public as opposed to custom web apps or custom marketplace apps, right? So one of the reasons why it's custom is to control how many people get on it. So yes, you're absolutely right. The backend layer is hosted by us at this moment in time. So again, it's a single instance. There is a separate instance that we're creating for another customer who just wants a single instance all to themselves. But it is something that's hosted and managed by us. So there is cost associated with it. Thankfully, it's not expensive. Like we have a ton of Azure credits per month that we can use on this. So I'm not really paying out of pocket, but it is something that we host. Yeah.
Okay.
The front end layer, though, it gets hosted in our Vercel instance. Again, it isn't, you're not taking millions of hits a month, so it really doesn't make much difference, and we're on a paid instance, so that doesn't bother me as much. You can spin up as many as you want, and you don't really need that many, right? You just need one app, one Next.js app per marketplace app in this case. So those two, yeah,
Okay.
we have to host it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking like, the serverless stuff can rack up very quickly. But obviously, like, this is not, the front end app is not front facing app. Like,
Yeah,
it's actually used in the portal. But I was like, for the second layer, I was thinking like, there will be API calls and stuff.
yeah,
So how you are going to keep that in check. So
yeah,
that's what.
yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And that's
Yes.
also like another reason, right? People want to customize. Like I want a custom job which does A, B, and C. Okay. One is you're gonna have to make changes to the base SiteCron code in itself to push it to the app service, right? And then if it takes 3 hours to run to churn a bunch of data to push it somewhere else, then there's bandwidth and there's runtime. So you don't want to be running for that long and using that much bandwidth. So and customizing on top of it. So it gets a little bit tricky, and I forget it sometimes, right? I always forget it. So I totally get it that, oh, why can't I do this? But then I have to stop myself. I'm like, no, it's a SaaS-based service. You have to think like you cannot modify it. That's the best way to do. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's looking pretty good, like, in terms of fitting it in the XM Cloud. Like,
That's all because of the block system. They did a good
right.
job. So first I used the shard CDN, and then Tarvos reminded me, hey, can you use the block with the version 2
Mm,
update? So it wasn't that hard to update. It actually looks pretty close to how the Sitecore AI console itself looks, right? So it's really not, it feels like it's part of it. It doesn't seem like it's an external app that's actually running inside of it.
yeah, that very true. Like, even in the Cracker Barrel project, we are using block to, like, there are certain cases we want to provide some sort of message to the content author or user.
Yeah.
So it's just follows the same UI standard. So we are using block for that, and it's pretty easy to actually integrate with the
Yeah.
XM Cloud. So
Yeah,
yeah,
they've done like that one. I think was a good call, and it's not unlike
yeah,
like Speak and all the other things in the past. This is
yeah.
super easy to use and integrate, and I had no issues. So my feedback was primarily so we had to go through a feedback cycle when they were testing out the version 1, version 2. My main feedback was like I really didn't have it. The documentation wasn't difficult, the API wasn't difficult. Everything was very seamless to build the app. My only part was like the the secret storage or being able to pull things from the context. You only get access to certain things, and I think the number of things have increased since version 2. But at the beginning, it was very difficult. I'm like, okay, I need A, B, and C, or you only get A. Okay, when can I get B and C? So it was a little bit
Right.
difficult to get everything, but now I think it's pretty stable. So once they add the variables and the secret storage at the tenant or the site level for my own needs, I think I'll be all set.
Awesome. I'll start up maybe someone else's question. So,
Uh, One question I have, I was talking with a colleague just last week, and I was talking with him because I am working with SiteCron in XP,
Mhm.
and we have quite a good amount of scheduled job using SiteCron. It would be more than 30. So I was explaining, and he mentioned something about tasks, which is available in Sitecore, and that was also some discussion around last year during XM Cloud implementation, one of the XM Cloud implementation. It is something similar. So I know Sitecron has been there, but if we want to use, why we should go to Sitecron? Because that would be a question if someone wants to implement SiteCron and client says that, hey, that is an external module, why can't we use schedule tasks, schedulers, which is available out of the box?
Are you talking about for XP or
XPA, XM both has that. So
yeah, so the the reasoning is the precision and what you can do with it, right? So for the regular scheduling which comes out of the box for XP and XM, it works for quite a few use cases. It's just dependent on a few things. For me, it wasn't as like that's why I had to create it, is it wasn't as dependable. Things were not triggering at the time I wanted it to trigger. Depends on when the CM was restarted. I needed like very specific thing and very specific reporting. So I was needed to be able to look at the logs and say, okay, I know that this job needed to be triggered at this time and it was triggered at this time. And just being able to have custom jobs which can also trigger at the same time. That's the reason why I had created it. I know there's companies that use it for specific purposes, like syndication. I know for sure runs every day at one of the customers that I worked for. So there is no true answer. The answer itself is how precise you need it to be and how much visibility you need it. For Sitecore AI, I know they have, I was talking about releases. Don't know when they'll be available, but that would be something that I would be curious to figure out how exactly that works. If there is a use case, if there isn't a use case that SiteCron Cloud should exist, then it shouldn't. But I'm gonna figure that out once they release that.
Yeah, I think this is kind of a age-old question about that, but I think the reason we made the decision architecturally is that Sitecore is a CMS, it's not actually a scheduler, and we found it very unreliable. As you said, like
Yeah.
something goes down, there is not enough log, and it was like almost um, created like with half-heartedly, not adding like a lot of features that you need in a scheduler. I mean, if you look at Azure, they have separate actually scheduler service. I forgot the name. Like they you can do a lot of stuff. The reason they actually created that because scheduler itself is actually very complex things to implement, right? So, and I
Yeah.
think your course module is actually the what actually supports a lot of stuff like that. So, as an architect, I would definitely prefer to put that. And in XM Cloud is out of question now because Sitecore scheduler was like server side, so you cannot do anything with it. So yeah, good job, Akshay.
Thank
Awesome.
you. And thank
Yeah.
you for having me on the user group, guys. Totally appreciate it.
Yeah. Is there any other questions? This is recorded, so it will be in the YouTube channel. Hope people will actually take a look. Maulik, you have anything else?
No, nothing from my side. I've been working with SiteCron for the first time. I think I worked upon and have extensively used. So it was really great to see that now it is available in XM Cloud as well.
Marketplace thing is interesting. We
It
need to
is,
explore
yeah.
that.
Like I haven't looked at custom fields and things, but it sounds super interesting if they followed a similar pattern.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
All right,
Thanks
guys. Thank
everyone
you so
for
much.
joining.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.